What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Countdown Scouting Network. I'm your host, Joey Garcia, and today we are continuing our positional ranking series, going in with wide receivers. So we do have 40 guys on this list, and we're gonna do the first, or I guess 40 through 26. We're gonna get all the way up to 26 and kind of hit them very, very broadly. We're not going to go into too much detail with these guys just because I haven't watched a ton of film for these guys. These are just guys that kind of popped off on either the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, Hula Bowl, or I've watched a couple games of them and I really like them and I thought they deserve to be on this list. So, this is going to be a three-parter. We'll do uh, 40 up to 26. Next, we will do 25 through 11, and then that third video is going to be our top 10. So stay tuned with that. These should be coming out in consecutive days, so it should be Thursday, Friday, Saturday for those. So let's get started with this. This one's going to be a quicker video, I'm hoping. So the first guy on here who I have at number 40 is Devin Carter. He's the wide receiver from West Virginia. He's a big wide receiver, a big body receiver. I believe he's 6'6", 225 pounds, something like that. He might be one of the guys that ends up getting converted to tight end just to kind of stick in the league. He doesn't have great speed that I saw or anything like that, or even great separation, but he's got a big frame and he makes good catches downfield. He's got a decent he's decent at tracking the ball over his shoulder and everything like that. So I think this is an interesting guy. He reminds me of the guy last year who was undrafted and who was making, I believe, the New York Giants roster until he ended up getting a season-ending injury. I can't remember the guy's name, but we talked about him last year as an undrafted free agent that was going to make the team, and I think he was going to make the team. Going to the next guy, Bo Collins from Clemson. Again, he's another bigger body guy who's got okay route running, not great burst, but he's got solid hands. A guy who on third downs really is someone who you would um, look for as a guy that if you have to get the first down, you don't think he's going to drop the ball. He doesn't create good separation, not great down the field or anything like that, but he's got enough in terms of pass catching where again he's another guy who might end up being a practice squad guy or even a guy that's going to help out on special teams and and develop into being maybe a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. He's not someone I really think has a chance to get up there as your wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 on a team though. Another guy. This was a late addition to the Hula Bowl, but I was very, very impressed with kind of his competitiveness whenever he got out there. Jaquan Burton from FAU. Um, he's a he's a guy who is I I don't want to say small in stature because he plays fairly big, but I don't think he's over 6 foot. He's barely 200 pounds, if that, but he's scrappy at the line of scrimmage. He did a really good job blocking downfield for some of the running backs at the Hula Bowl. So that's really what I saw from him. Is when he had the ball in his hands, he was hard to bring down with the first contact, which is really rare for a receiver of his stature. I feel like he just kept churning his legs, almost like he was a running back trying to get the most yards as possible. So I was impressed with him. I want to see what he does at his pro day, and I kind of want to look into his film a little bit more. Isaiah Williams, wide receiver from Illinois. He's a guy who I was very, very impressed with again at the Hula Bowl. This is another guy from the Hula Bowl. I think he can play inside or outside. He's a little smaller. I believe he is 5'10", but he's 5'10", 195 pounds. He's got good route running. He doesn't have great route running. I'm concerned with his catching. I saw a couple drops out there that should have been passes that he caught, but he's a guy that's got versatility. He can play inside, he can play outside, like I already said, and I think he's got enough speed where he's going to not just be an underneath guy. I think he's someone that can maybe stretch the field if he's a seam, stretching it in the slot as a seam guy, or even just take the top off as a Z guy over there. So that's another one that keep an eye on. I again, all these guys I've talked about so far, I don't really think they get drafted, but they are guys we might be talking about in the undrafted series after the draft once we get to that point of the year. So Zachary Franklin from Ole Miss. This is a guy who transferred in from, I believe, UTSA, and he was a beast at UTSA. A yak guy, someone who, again, could play inside and outside. Transferred to Ole Miss to get playing time against bigger competition, and he just did not impress. He couldn't really get on the field, even when he was on the field. He didn't get very many targets when he got targets. Had some drop issues as well. He's a very shifty yards after catch guy. I just think that jump was dramatic for him, and he had a lot of guys in front of him at Ole Miss. They had a lot of good wide receivers this year, and he just really couldn't see the field. So it was unfortunate for him, but I think he's good enough where he will probably just be a practice squad guy for the first year, develop, get comfortable in a system, and then he could end up being one of those guys who is your wide receiver three. I kind of think of him as maybe like a Marquez Valdez Scantling. I don't think he's got the speed like that, but someone who is a kind of deep threat slash gadgety guy who can play inside. He can play the slot if he has to. But I think he's more of an outside guy, and I think he's a developmental undrafted free agent where sky's the limit for him, really. Next on this list, we have Brew McCoy from Tennessee. Brew McCoy ended up getting a very traumatic leg injury in the middle of the season. He was a beast for Tennessee before that. Again, he's a bigger wide receiver who's still shifty. Think about what Brian Thomas Jr. is doing at LSU at 6'3", 190 pounds, where he's that big but shifty kind of basketball type skill set. That's what Brew McCoy was before the injury. Again, he was a little beefier. He had a little bit more meat on his bones, but he was able to make guys miss in the open space. He could take contact. He could go up for 50-50 balls. I just don't right now with how bad that knee injury was. His leg, I think his knee dislocated. His leg was sideways. Very graphic. So I don't know if he'll come back from that very quickly. But this is a guy I would take in the 6th, 7th round just because of if he didn't have that leg injury, you're probably saying this is a 4th round pick. Trey Harris from Ole Miss, just a deep threat guy. Really nothing more to say about that. He's fast. He's got good enough hands. I thought he could track the ball fairly well, but not really on a consistent basis. Back shoulder throws, I didn't think he could do that. I don't think he's got good enough hips where he can play in the slot. I don't think he's a guy that really can run a diverse route tree. That's why I have him down here at 34. But again, he's a guy who, if you need him to do one role, he's a one role specific guy. I think he can fit in your offense as a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, as a depth guy, and also help contribute on special teams. Going to my number 33 guy, Hayden Hatton from Idaho. I love this kid. This is one of my guys. We'll get to the my guy rankings probably here in a month, a few weeks before the draft actually starts. We'll go over some of my guys, but it's going to be hard not to put Hayden on this list. He is, again, from a small school. He's probably going to run a 4.55. He's not going to be a burner, but he's a bigger body receiver. He makes great 50-50 catches. He dominated the FCS level at Idaho. I believe he won a FCS championship with them. And he makes good contested catches. He makes good concentration catches. He can contort his body in the air. I saw him at the Hula Bowl. He looked like he was ready to play against better competition. It's just, you're dominating at Idaho. How are you going to be able to go from Idaho to the NFL level? That's kind of what I want to see. I don't know if he got an NFL Combine invite, but I'm curious to see if he does and kind of, what kind of drills he'll do and if he'll look like if he looks like he's the same kind of athlete as those other guys that are in there. But I really do like this guy. I think he can stick as an outside receiver. DeCorian Clark from UTSA. This is a guy who I was really excited about coming into the season. He didn't really show that much this season. I don't know if he was injured or what, but he was someone who I really thought could be, you know, an inside outside receiver, a Kadarius Toney like, where he's just got the shiftiness, the versatility. I didn't really see it this year, so I still have him on this list just because I really did like the guy, but there's not really much to say about him other than what we talked about at the beginning of the season. I didn't see much from him this year, and I don't know. I don't really know why, to be honest with you. Marcus Rosemary Jack Saint from Georgia is my number 31 guy. He is someone who was kind of stuck in the depth chart at Georgia for a little while because they've had all those wide receivers coming by. But this year, um, I would say at this Hula Bowl cycle is when he really started popping out as a true downfield jump ball 50-50 receiver. He's someone who I think he's got good speed. He's got a nice release package. He's not going to be a burner. He's not a sub 4.4 guy. He might not even be in the 4.4s, but he's like a discount Keon Coleman. If you're looking at Keon Coleman in the second round this year and you don't get him, I think Rosemary Jack Saint is a guy who you could get in the fifth and get 80% of what you wanted from Keon Coleman. I think he can be that good. He'll never be a wide receiver one. He's got one really good skill set, which is just jump balls, contested catch, focus catches down the field. That's really it. His route running, I didn't see anything special or anything like that. His release package is good enough just because he's a bigger body. Now, maybe when he's getting jammed by some actual NFL corners and not just NFL prospects, it might be a little different, but I don't think so. I think he's got a good enough release package and contested ability where he'll make a roster and be maybe a wide receiver 3 on their team. The next guy, this dude is another one of the guys who I really want to put on the my guys list, and I think I might, and it's Jalen Coker out of Holy Cross. He is a guy I was hearing a lot of buzz about, and then he got put on the Hula Bowl roster, and so I got to watch him during the Hula Bowl a lot, and he is a burner, man. He's another. A lot of these guys are going to be guys who are just straight line speed, deep threat, contested catch downfield, and he's got all that. Except I think he's a 4.3 guy. It's hard to tell because when you watch his Holy Cross tape, it's him against a lot of guys who are going to be accountants next year, but I mean, he's a burner. He can do stuff with the ball in his hands as well. So don't get it twisted. He's not just a deep threat guy, but his route running not that crisp. He's got good contested catches from what I can tell, and he smokes guys. And at the Hula Bowl, it was basically all the same thing. He got a nice touchdown pass in the Hula Bowl, held on to it at the back of the pylon. Very, very hard catch, one-handed catch, kind of contorted his body and everything like that. So he excites me. I don't think he got invited to the combine though, which is a shame. I don't know if he'll get drafted. He probably won't, but he's a guy who I could see making a squad, kind of like what we talked about last year with Xavier Gibson as a return specialist. I think he can return some balls as well. So that is my number 30 guy. So breaking into the top 30. We got one, two, three. We got 4 more guys that we'll talk about here, and then we will call it quits. So we got Torrey Horton, the wide receiver from Colorado State. He is the one that against Colorado was, he caught the game winner. I think he caught 230 yards, something like that. I think it was 230 yards and 2 touchdowns against Colorado last year. 6'4", 6'5", maybe. He's a big body wide receiver, got really long arms, jump ball guy. I think sky's the limit for him. I really don't think he's at his ceiling yet, but his route running's not great. He's got good speed though. I would say he's probably a 4.4 guy who's got good hands. Again, like I was saying, in this back end, a lot of these guys are just going to be your deep threat guys. Maybe you can teach them to run some routes. Maybe their hip fluidity is good enough. I think he's a guy who his hip fluidity is going to be fine, He's just not there yet. So if you can get him with a good wide receivers coach that can really teach him to dip down when he's running routes and learn how to play off of DB's leverage, he might be able to be a guy that can run some intermediate routes as well. But right now, he's a back shoulder, over the top, deep threat wide receiver. So this is probably a day 3 guy as well, 5th round, 6th round, something like that. Jermaine Burton from Alabama, 2-time national champion, I believe. Started at Georgia and then transferred to Alabama. He is a guy that's lower on my list than a lot of other people's lists. And you can see Ricky Pearsall's over here at 26 as well. He's another guy who's lower on my list than on a lot of other people's lists. But Jermaine Burton is a deep threat guy who, at times you can see a playmaker with the ball in his hands. I just don't see consistency with him. I see a lot of concentration drops. I see a lot of just undisciplinedness in his games. I think, he's got speed. He's a big body guy who's got the speed that you need. He might be. I mean, I think he's a 4-3 guy at 6'3". I think he's 6'3", like 200 pounds, and he's probably a 4-3 guy. He just isn't consistent enough for me, and he's got a lot of drops. And so I just don't trust it. His route running is okay. It's not the greatest. And it's just, he's got all the talent in the world. I just don't see him getting it. And that's from Georgia and Alabama. If he was a guy if this was him at FAU or West Virginia or Tulane, like some of the guys that we've talked about, Holy Cross, I'd be like, man, this is a guy who's got talent, that he just needs someone to sculpt it. He was at Georgia for 3 years, I think, and then Alabama at 2 years. If they can't get it out of him, I don't know who will. So he's at 28 for me. All the talent in the world, I just don't really see it. Jaquan Jackson is one that we'll go through quickly, from Tulane. He's Michael Pratt's favorite guy for the last couple years, and he's just shifty with the ball in his hands. I don't know if he's got top end speed, but I kind of see it there. He's running away from guys in his tape. He's very, very raw. He's a guy who is raw, and he's just an athlete in space. That's really it. He'll drop some balls. He doesn't run crisp routes, but he's a yak machine. When he's got the ball in his hands, he does some work. So that's why I like him. I think he's another day 3 guy that you can get on a team, and he can be your wide receiver 3. And you can sculpt him into being something great. So I really like Jaquan Jackson as well. All right, the last guy we will talk about on this one is Ricky Pearsall from Florida. I don't see what everyone else sees on tape, and that just might be me. I watched every one of his games. I don't think he runs crisp routes. If you want to say that he runs a nice comeback route, yeah, he runs a nice comeback route. He runs a good slant route. But if you're going to ask him to run complex routes and play off of zone coverage and know when to sit down, I don't see it. He's got good hands. Yes, he's got really good hands. He makes good catches. He's fast. He can do end arounds, but he's not fast. He's not 4-3, 4-2 fast. He's 4-4. He's going to run a 4-4-6, something like that, which is good. That's enough speed. That's more than enough speed. I just don't see how everyone's saying that he runs great routes like Ladd McConkey does this year. There are plenty of wide receivers that run way better routes than he does, that are faster than he is. That's more quick twitch than he is. He's got good enough speed, but he's not quick twitch. He doesn't run great routes. So I like him at 26. I think he's going to go in the 2nd round. I have a 4th round grade on him. So again, that's a 2-round difference. He's probably going to get picked around 40 to 50. I probably have him as just squeaking into a top 100 guy. So I could be wrong about that, but that's how I feel about Ricky Pearsall. I like him. I think he's going to succeed in the NFL. I just don't see a day 1 wide receiver 2 like everyone else is seeing. So if you like this, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, because we'll be doing this all the way up until the draft. We should be having probably 4 or 5 episodes of things going up to the draft, and then after that we'll be great in the draft. So this is our time to shine here in the next couple months. But yeah, if you did like it, leave a like. If you didn't like it, go ahead and put down in the comments where you disagree with any of these players, or any players that you think I'm probably not going to talk about. Go ahead and put them down there as well. I'd love some of your sleeper wide receivers. So, with that being said, have a good day. Peace.